Well, we're going to have a battle this week in Hornell. We're going to have more than one battle.
Yes, several.
Wait a minute. Now, your microphone wasn't on there, Doctor.
Oh, okay. Is that better now?
Dr. Annabel, also Major, I don't know your names.
Well, in the Confederate Army, I'm Major LeGrand G. Capers. In the Union Army, I'm Major John Stearns Jameson.
All right. Well, we'll talk about this battle coming up here this year now weekend. A lot of people really enjoy this, and they look forward to it. So stay tuned, and we'll talk about what's coming up in our area. I understand they're going to call it an airstrike this year. Stay tuned, folks.
That's
next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Wait a minute. Now we're back on the air.
They did have the first version of the American Air Force in the Civil War. General McClellan in 1962 had Professor Thaddeus Lowe in the Aeronautical Corps, and they had hydrogen hot air-filled observation balloons, and they were quite successful. But personality conflicts led to Lowe resigning. He was kind of a prima donna, couldn't get along with a lot of people. And this was the first time you had eyes in the sky looking down your enemy. And it's too bad for the Union Army it stopped, because it was very useful and provided great intelligence.
Yeah. Did the Confederates ever do that?
They had one or two balloons, but they did not have the industrial capacity to make hydrogen gas on a large scale, so their balloons never went very far. The other thing that's fascinating, they've recreated one of these balloons at Mumford. It was there last year for the first 2 years ago.
Up towards your Rochester.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, at the Genesee Country Museum. And it is a historical recreation of the Federal balloon, the Intrepid, which was one of the larger balloons. It was capable, I believe, of ascending to nearly 1,000 feet. And to get more altitude out of your balloon back in the Civil War, it had to be progressively bigger with a greater load of hydrogen to lift you up.
How high up did they go?
About 1,000 feet, which gave you a great ability to look down on a battlefield.
But they didn't keep it up.
They did not. The Thaddeus Lowe had a falling out with the Union command and other people who tried to take it over. They didn't have his management and technical skills, and it eventually was abandoned, and it had been very useful.
Now, didn't the rebels ever think, let's put a hole in that balloon?
Oh, yes. The worst time in your balloon ride was on the way up. That you were cabled. You were attached to the ground, and the ground crew would run you up, and to the first 500 feet, a lot of lead was thrown at you, and occasionally an artillery piece might fire, but most of the cannons could not elevate to an effective degree. So most of the balloon crews were under small arms fire. And but the range was far enough away from the enemy soldiers that a hit was pretty unlikely.
Did it ever happen?
Not that I'm aware of, but it certainly, and the other thing, it gave you pause as balloon crew. Remember, hydrogen has a nasty tendency to burn and blow up. Think of the Hindenburg. But no recorded balloon fires were noted. The Union Army Aeronautical Corps is very familiar with the explosive properties of hydrogen. They had very strict rules in place on the ground where that was handled.
Now, you've got a thing coming up this weekend. You're not going to call it an airstrike?
No, we're not.
There is a thing called the Confederate Air Force, you know.
Whoa, they've had to be historically correct and completely rename themselves now. Yes, they still use the same initials, CAF, but now, so they won't offend anyone, they call themselves the Commemorative Air Force.
Who would they offend? I'm getting so tired of everyone being offended.
Probably a bunch of Yankees.
Oh, I know, but...
Anyway, Commemorative Air Force, and they're all the time asking me for money because they know I love things that are historical.
You know what we ought to do, Doc? We ought to come up with a group. I don't know what it would be, but we could come up with a group and then allow people to offend us and then collect or shut them down. You can do a lot of nice things when you're a victim.
I suppose, but that's already being done, Kevin.
Oh, big time.
We wouldn't be adding anything to our legacy.
There's things you just can't say anymore.
Oh, I know. If you look at many of our Civil War songs, we still sing them the original way. We're not going to alter them.
Yeah,
and
for a while. They'll get you.
Oh, no, they won't. We're rebels, remember?
All right, okay.
At any rate, And look at the rewrite of Uncle Tom's Cabin. The rewrite is so sanitized, it's just has
You don't know what
lost
happened, huh?
much of its original flavor. No.
Well,
Anyway, back to our present event.
okay, now this Battle of Lane's Mills, am I getting it right?
Yes, Lane's Mill. Lane's
Lane's.
Mill, singular, yes.
A singular, all right. Lane's Mill. This has happened how many years now?
For 2 years, we had our battle at the Canisteo Legion, and it wasn't, of course, called the Battle of Lane's Mill. This is the third year we will have moved up on the Lane campground, up above Harry Lane's cider mill on the hill, and we'll have adequate signage out on Route 36 and the various routes leading to the battlefield. And many of our friends have been there before, so they'll remember how to get there. It's a 600-acre land tract. It's about 850 feet above the valley. And the view is stunning. You can see for probably 25 miles down the Canisteo Valley from up there. And each year it keeps getting bigger. The first year that we were there, we had about 260 reenactors. Last year we had about 320. We have something special coming this year we've never had before. We have Federal Mounted Cavalry. In the past, we've had Company A, 9th New York Dismounted Cavalry, because it's very expensive once you incorporate a horse into your hobby for the Civil War. And that's a max effort event with those boys, has been last year and again this year. And this year, we're getting 9th New York Company B out of Ontario, Canada, bringing their horses.
Wait a minute, hold it. Ontario, Canada?
A large number of Canadians are ardent American Civil War reenactors.
Wow.
50,000 of them fought in the war.
Did they really?
And some went for the Confederacy, some for the Union. And
well, they just
50,
guys like to
000
fight, huh? They just...
No, they felt attracted to the cause, which is curious because if you think of who lived in Canada at the time of the Civil War, it was people that were subject to the British crowns and Tories that had been driven out of the United States of America by our own revolution. And yet 50,000 of them came south to fight in that war. The interesting thing for us, a few years ago, we attracted a Canadian surgeon and his brother, a hospital steward, who have now become members of our unit, Rod and Randy Holloway. And the word spread to the Canadians. They've got this beautiful location. You don't have to drive to Pennsylvania or Virginia to have a nice battlefield. And, I mean, you think you're coming from Picton, Ontario, Toronto area, and the province of Ontario. We are much closer to them than any of the sites further south, and each year we're picking up more and more units from Canada. And the word spreads mouth to mouth.
Now, I have a question about why people want to be reenactors. And since you reenact for both sides...
I do.
Which is kind of funny when you think about it.
A lot of people, more than you know, do.
Just switch uniforms and...
Absolutely. You'll come to an event, okay, what's the preponderance of troop numbers? Okay, we can't put on a good show for the public because we don't have enough Federals this weekend. So a whole unit will galvanize and put on their blue uniforms. I think the primary motivation why most people do it is to teach history to our current generation. A love of history is the primary reason. There's very few people, reenactors, that are trying to do it to change the course of the war.
Oh, it's not going to happen.
Years old, it's not going to happen. And I think it's an escape from the stresses of our current reality to a previous time. When we do a reenactment weekend, we live with accommodations of that period for an entire weekend. You teleport yourself back in time, and it's a unique and very pleasing experience. The other thing is you get to know a lot of people that have similar values from all walks of life that you ordinarily might not ever meet or become friends with, that you have a lot in common. You look forward to seeing them at the next event, and you are able to educate the American public, which at times is astonishingly ignorant of an event that occurred only 150 years ago in our nation's history.
Tell me about it. Yeah, it's
other thing
frightening.
That's become a great deal of fun for us are our school programs. Last year, for the first time, we put it on our own school days. I've helped other schools do it before. And last year, between the teachers and the students, we had 510 guests for school days. We're doing it again this year, the Friday, June 6th, before our event on the 7th and 8th. And this year, we've got over 650 school kids coming. That's school kids alone.
Well, last week I happened to be talking to, wait a minute, you got to help me here. Ophthalmologist is
an MD eye doctor who may or may not do surgery.
All right. Optometrist
is an OD, doctor of optometry. He's the gentleman or lady that fits you to your eyeglasses.
Okay. I was talking to an optometrist, and this optometrist told me that children in that family go to a school that they went there. They went there last year to your place, and the kids were really excited about it. And I think I told you about, I got to use the name here, Pasquale Pico's kids.
Yes.
I tell you that story?
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned about his wife coming up from the St. Anne's School and bringing the school children with her.
No, that's not what I was going to talk about.
Oh, okay.
They sit across from us at Sunday Mass. And the poor priest, before he had a chance to even start the sermon, he's still working on the gospel. There's one of these kids with the ramrod they're putting in the powder?
Yeah, ramrod goes down the barrel.
Yeah, all right. Up and bam! Up and bam! Poor guy got shot 3 times before he even started the sermon.
Shooting the priest, isn't that a sin?
Yeah.
I would think that's a sin, Kevin.
It would be if he were a little older, but
yes.
Good target practice. The guy was up there, he was big,
hey.
And I knew where he'd been that weekend.
Oh, well.
He was down at your exhibition.
Yes, and one of the many schools of the soldiers' stations we have is we give the kids wooden muskets and teach them how to drill. In another station with soldiers demonstrating with live muskets, they show the kids how to load and fire a live musket.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back with Dr. Spencer Annabelle in just a moment. I want to talk about another TV series dealing with the American Revolution, and we'll see if he knows anything about that. We'll be back in just a moment. Our guest today, Dr. Spencer Annabelle, he's here to promote, we've already been doing it on the air, but he's here to promote the Battle of Lane's Mill coming up. You better tell him exactly.
Saturday and Sunday, June 6th and 7th, the camps open at 9 a.m. On Saturday, we'll have a early cavalry battle at about noon, the main battle at 3. We'll have programs during the day, both days. We've got a number of Civil War personalities you can come meet that will be in the respective Union and Confederate camps. And this year, for the first time, Kevin, we have some ranking Union generals coming as our guests. General Hooker.
Fighting Joe Hooker.
Joe Hooker and General David Birney, who succeeded him to 3rd Corps Command after Hooker's disabling wound at Gettysburg. So they are coming up from the Elmira area, an American Heritage Organization, to do living history portrayals of those two personalities. They're going to graciously help us with school days and then be around for the weekend to visitors ask them various questions about the Civil War. General Longstreet will be back.
Old Jimmy coming up.
Yes, yeah. General Longstreet will be there.
Interesting dude.
Very interesting. Yeah. Wonderful fellow. Another Canadian, as we spoke about the Canadians earlier.
He's going to have a rebel accent.
Oh, he does just fine.
All right, okay.
And a wonderful man, and he's coming to help us with school days. So we're going to have a full program. And one thing that we're going to have that's going to be, we have a dance each year. And after camps close to the public at about 5, we're having Bob McCormick and a group of his friends and musicians come up and play Civil War tunes for us.
On their fiddles.
On their fiddles. While we eat supper, and then we'll be kind enough to feed them supper in exchange for the music, and they're all excited about it. They're going to have a good time. Civil War tunes, yes.
No, Civil War supper.
Yes, Civil War supper.
Hardtack?
No, chicken and biscuits.
I think I'd rather have hardtack. That's one thing
I guess
can't
you
stand.
haven't had hardtack. You
No.
look like you have most of your teeth left, Kevin.
Yeah, that's true.
So that tells me you haven't had much hardtack.
That was the reason. There was a reason they called it hardtack. Right?
Yes, there was. And you never just took one out of the package and ate it. You smashed it up on a stone, or you cooked your meal and smashed it into the meal as you...
Did it have any value to it? I mean, did it?
Absolutely. It was the cracker of its day. The trouble with bread is bread lasts a couple of days when you bake bread and give it to the soldiers. Hardtack lasted for months, and even if it spoiled and had weevils in it, and that's all you had to eat, you ate it. It was a very sustainable way to deliver carbohydrate calories to the battlefield with a minimum of space.
Okay.
And it basically was about a half-inch thick, rock-hard cracker. Probably 2.5 inches
Now, isn't it a
square.
fact, Doctor, isn't it a fact that the Civil War guys on the Union side, at least, I assume it would be the same on the Rebel side, they had to cook their own meals, didn't they? They didn't have guys cooking
When
for
they
them.
were on the march, they would often cook their own meals and forage for food from the local people that they could steal food from. When they were in camp, each company had a company cook, and the supplies would be brought to that cook. You'd see the camp pictures when the Army was in camp with large, huge cauldrons on metal tripods over the fire with a meal being cooked. Each company typically had their company cook.
Okay, let me go to the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
I don't watch a lot of television. Watch the news. Then I switch over to PBS or sometimes the History Channel. But here's the thing. What used to be the military channel is now the American Heroes Channel. I don't know where they came up with that one. And they're doing a series on the Revolutionary War called Turn. Have you seen that?
I have not.
All right, well, I'm sorry you haven't, because I had a question for you. I know you're good on history. The older generation either speak with the British accent because it's the Tory side.
They were British subjects.
Right. Well, no, these are the British soldiers.
Oh, okay.
But then they had Tories, and at least a third, maybe more, of the Americans were Tories. They didn't support this revolution. They speak not unlike the way I'm speaking to you now.
The Tories?
Yeah.
Really?
No, I'm talking about American Tories.
Yeah.
But then their children are speaking with an Irish accent. So I can only assume that they ran out of people and they got in some Irish actors and actresses. And I'm saying, well, how can this be?
That wouldn't have been historically correct.
No, I mean, if the father speaks what we generally refer to as General American or even New England American English.
Or I call
American
it American English versus British English.
Right, okay. But why would the kids have an Irish accent? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. If you think of the way generations amalgamate into American society when they come over from Europe or wherever they come from, the first generation pretty much clings to their native language.
Yeah, or their accent.
Their children have a lighter version because, got to remember, at the time of the American Revolution, children of British citizens who came over here to live heard British English at home, probably heard British English at school if they went to school, and that still strongly influenced a child's accent. Child's accent is pretty much all ingrained permanently by the time they're 4. And so it'd probably take at least 2 generations for the British English to dilute to what you and I would refer to as American English. And if the kids were having an Irish accent, you got to wonder where the movie was filmed.
Well, you've got to wonder what they were thinking. You know? And frankly, even though I am Irish, I don't understand this strain of Irish accent. That's
one you've not heard before.
Well, you can go 40 miles an hour and hear a totally different accent. You go 30 miles and hear a totally different accent. And this is one I have to strain. What are these people saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if the father is speaking American English and the kid is speaking with an Irish accent, it doesn't make sense.
They didn't get it right.
No.
The other thing is, for the past several nights on the History Channel, they had the series on war. And I'm a stickler for historical authenticity. And many of the film shots they were showing were not pure World War II warships. They were modern warships with the Japanese flag on them. Many of the aircraft they're showing what's supposed to be a German bomber. You just look up and you know it's a B-17 silhouette. Or they're showing a Japanese pilot getting into the canopy and you know darn well it's a F-86 Sabre jet canopy is closing. It's, you know, and I mean that's even Korean War. That's not even the right war. So, and for example, they summarized the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. They destroyed all the battleships. Well, you know what? When you bomb and sink the American fleet at Pearl Harbor, the smaller ships, destroyers, may be scrapped. The battleships, all but 2 of them, were refloated, repaired, and back in service within 10 months. Destroy means you can't fix it. That was the Arizona and one other battleship.
Oklahoma, wasn't it?
Oklahoma, I believe. All the others refloated, fixed up, and refitted. So they made a number of things that people like me who really cherish their history just kind of grit your teeth. And
listen, our time's gone, believe it or not.
That's unfortunate. I enjoy these chats.
Well, again, tell them the days and the times and all that. It's this weekend, anyway.
This weekend. Friday will be dedicated to Civil War School Days, and I encourage any volunteers that'd like to come up to our camp at 8 o'clock. You get a free morning looking with the children through 13 Civil War living history stations, and each loop will have 2 loops, and we'll feed you lunch. If you want to come up and just take the kids from station to station, we'll show you how to do it. And any senior volunteers or anybody who's got the day off, we'd love to have you come up and help us. We'll have about 650 plus school kids up there. The main event for the public will be open Saturday morning, 9 o'clock till 5, and Sunday, 9 till 5. And the main events will be June 7th and 8th. And we will have mounted cavalry for the first time at our event this year.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer Annabel. Now, stay tuned for more news and information.
Thank you.
1480 WLEA.